All right, good evening. Welcome to the October 21st, 2024 meeting of the Marshfield Planning Board. The time is now 7:04 p.m. Tonight's meeting is being recorded by MCTV, and we are holding a live remote meeting via Zoom. Uh, Tonight, our members are Katie O'Donnell, Nick Papastratis, Fred Monaco is absent, Kevin Cantwell is absent. I'm Mike Viviano, the chair, and also with us tonight is Scott DeCastro, our associate member, Greg Giebman, our town planner, and Karen Horn, our assistant town planner. At this time, I'll make a motion to open tonight's public meeting and waive the reading of the notice. Is there a second?
Second, Katie O'Donnell. Katie O'Donnell, aye.
Thank you. Nick?
Nick Papastratis, aye.
Um, and Mike Viviano, aye. Okay, so we are open. If anyone is here for, tell me which one it was again, Greg?
John Sherman.
John Sherman. We are going to continue that until 11/18/24 at 7 p.m. and we're not going to take any testimony tonight. So I'll make a motion that we continue John Sherman until November 18th, 2024 at 7. Is there a second?
Second, Katie O'Donnell. Katie O'Donnell, aye.
Nick?
Nick Papastratis, aye.
And Mike Viviano, aye. Okay. Greg, maybe if other people pop in later on, you can just let them know. If you see anyone that's going to be here for that.
Okay.
All right, so we'll move on. What would you rather go and start the public hearing, Greg, or what do you want to do?
Yeah, well, we had it at 7 o'clock for the public hearing. So
Okay.
if you want to.
All right, let's do that. So I'll make a motion that we open the public hearing for the MBTA communities and accessory dwelling ADU zoning changes and waive the reading of the notice. Is there a second?
Second, Katie O'Donnell. Katie O'Donnell, aye.
Nick?
Nick Papastratis, aye.
And Mike Viviano, aye. Okay, Greg, I'll let you take over.
Okay. Do you see the PowerPoint on the screen?
We can.
Okay. So tonight, it's public hearing. We're going to cover the MBTA community zoning, the Chapter 40A, Section 3A, and the accessory dwelling units, which was a recent state zoning change as well. And we're also going to update you on the MBTA, the Supreme Judicial Court's case with Milton. And I will get into the details on both of the submittals for town meeting. This is the actual language section. There's 3 parts, A, B, and C, for the MBTA communities. The key points to this is that MBTA communities, which we have been deemed were an MBTA community by the state, shall have a zoning ordinance, a bylaw that provides for at least one district of a reasonable size, which in Marshfield's case is 50 acres minimum, in which multifamily housing is permitted as of right. We're supposed to have a minimum gross density of 15 units per acre. It has to be within a half mile of a commuter rail station, subway station, ferry tower mall, or bus station. It is not any of those. It can have age restrictions, and it must be suitable for families with children. They did change their guidelines when they first announced it. We had sent in comments, and the state did change the guidelines to allow the communities to ask for 10% or up to 10% of the units to be affordable. Initially, the state was intending this to be all market rate housing. Part B is basically what the state had set up. If you fail to comply, you would not get A, B, and C were 3 grants listed. And then in May, the state added a 4th grant. Later on in August, the state did add additional 13 discretionary grants in which you can still apply and you may get them, but you may not get as high points when the state reviews it if you're not in compliance with the MBTA communities. Of those new 13 that were added by the state, Marshfield has only had 1 grant. So out of A, B, and C, and 1 through 13, only number 13 of the 17 grants has the town used recently. And that was municipal vulnerability preparedness planning grants. Conservation had applied for a 3rd MVP grant this year, but the town did not get that grant. The last section of the law is Section C, which is the guidelines, which the state lawmakers decide to allow the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities to set up guidelines. And that's where we were added, because originally you had that requirement half mile from a commuter rail station, et cetera. They made 4 different categories: rapid transit, which is your red, orange line, blue line, bus service communities, commuter rail communities, and adjacent communities. And we are considered an adjacent community. So this next slide shows the state classified us as an adjacent community. You see the minimum land area on the right in that circled area, of minimum of 50 acres have to be zoned that way. And you have to allow for a capacity of 1,158 units at least to be built by right. The state did set up, the guidelines were very prescriptive and very little flexibility for all their mapping that they required us to submittal for this. They had excluded lands, which you can see the first category, and they also had sensitive lands. One important note is that the state guidelines do allow communities to include land that is already developed, and you'll see later why that is important. So we did the mapping the first time around, and you can see the map to the right, and we used what they required, and we looked for land areas 50 acres or more that did not have excluded or sensitive lands, and we could not come up with an area. So staff went back and tried again, and we came up with a few other things that we wanted to, but you can see in blue, we kept the some of the recommended guidelines that the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities had asked for. We added locating on the GATRA route. We added trying not to overload one area of town. We also looked at improving existing land uses if possible, because you have some older grandfathered uses in some areas that maybe you don't really want in a wellhead protection area, such as automotive repairs and stuff. So we did that the second time, and we came up with the area that we had gone to town meeting, which was the area from School Street over to the high school complex, where the driveway is to enter for both the middle school and the high school. Direct granite is right adjacent to it. That area meets most of the requirements of the MBTA communities law. It's also on the GATRA route. It's close to Route 3. The high school, the middle school, the town ball fields, the Boys and Girls Club, a supermarket, restaurants and other businesses, and the town dog park. So it meets some of the things that the state was looking for in the creation of a district. So the outlined district is in red, has no excluded lands, but it does have one sensitive category, and that is a Zone 2 for the Furnace and Union Street wells. Any new development would need to install an upgraded wastewater system or package treatment system as part of their redevelopment of a property. And we have double checked with the DPW. The DPW has no plans and nothing discussed about extending the sewer line from the downtown up to this area. So that was one of the questions we've heard in the past. Well, you know, what is this area ever going to be sewered and stuff? No, the intent on the town side is not to sewer this. If you are a developer and you want to do this, it's on you to come up with a wastewater system or a package treatment plant. This area is about 84 acres in size, so it slightly exceeds both the land area and the required number of units if it was fully developed. Here's another shot of the area so you can see how developed the area already is. Starting from the right to the left, you see direct granite. Then you have DJ Sullivan. Then you have the storage place. Then you have Luchetti's. You have some of the Marshfield, a village at Marshfield units over here. This is the old Gillespie Ford. Here's a the liquor stores here, Wendy's is over here, Ming Dynasty is here, Starbucks, as you go across Cask and Flanagan. This is the Jeep dealer, and you can see this big area up in here. That is owned by the Jeep dealer, but it has a conservation restriction on it, so that cannot be developed. Then you have Old Stage Stop, Castle Green, the Dunkin' Donuts and stuff are over here at the banks, and School Street, so it ends at that intersection. This is a video of the same area, so again, you can see that's Direct Granite, DJ Sullivan, the storage place. As we come along, you can see most of these areas are fully developed. There is a little clump of trees behind Anton Cleaners and the former Gillespie Ford dealer, and then also the liquor store. But that's split up between 3 property owners that already have buildings on it. That's Luchetti's. There go the Cleaners. That driveway in between Luchetti's and the Cleaners goes to the apartments that are already existing from the late 60s, early 70s. We're coming up to the liquor store now. And then you can see more of the village at Marshfield in the back, the white buildings with the gray, and Wendy's. So the drone will adjust itself as it's flying, so that's why it's moving around a little, sorry. The Ming Dynasty. In the back, in between the apartments and Ming Dynasty, is an office building on the Ming Dynasty property. We're coming up to Starbucks, so I need the planning board members to pay attention to Starbucks as we fly by, because that there is a minor a waiver request for Starbucks with their sign coming up later in the meeting. You can see how the cars are angling in and blocking, you know, as they stack up, they can block people trying to get in and out right there. The village at Marshfield, which is in the background, that's roughly 14 and a half units per acre, 15 units per acre already. This is a Jeep dealer. Again, the trees in the background that goes kind of in that direction has a conservation restriction on it. Coming up to Old Stage Stop in the back. You can see office buildings in the front. And then behind the bank and stuff, you can see some apartments that are very well hidden by this old stand of pine trees. That's Castle Green. The green area right at the intersection of School Street 139 is owned by the bank. It is depressed, it's lower, and that's drainage for the parking lots for those buildings. So we use the state guidelines and sample zoning language when we drafted the first one. We decided to use an overlay district over the existing B2 instead of trying to create a whole new district. We capped the height to 4 floors. The state had allowed up to 6 floors. We capped the density at 16, whereas the state model only had a minimum threshold of 15 units per acre, which would allow a developer to come in with any density they wanted over that, the way the state language was, which is why we changed it. We also added a minimum lot area requirement where the state did not have that. We kept the water resource protection district for nitrogen loading and lot coverage in place. The town has higher nitrogen loading standards, 5 parts per million. It's a special permit through the planning board versus state's requirement of 10 parts per million. You would have to meet that 5 parts per million in order to, the way we drafted our language, in order to get your MBTA communities development. We also added that the applicants would contribute towards either creating safe bus stops along 139 or financial assistance with the town to provide a second GATRA route to the commuter rail station at Greenbush, which is why we are considered an adjacent community. It's because we're adjacent to Situate's Greenbush station. And then finally, we did add in that 10% had to be affordable housing. As I mentioned before, we set up 16 units per acre. We do allow multiple buildings on a single lot. You would have to file a site plan review with the planning board under the bylaw. An application under this could not be denied, but it could be conditioned. We gave the option for other boards to give 30 days to comments. It would be a short time frame for decision, 4 months. The state guidelines was 6 months. But there is no public hearing. It would be listed as a planning board agenda action item. It does allow multifamily housing, which is the primary use. Retail and other uses are allowed on the first floor. As I mentioned, we had a minimum lot size. We had a maximum stories. We kept the setback in the front the same, 40 feet, because in case we have to widen 139 in the future, we did not want to have buildings right up against the highway or the road. And we did put the affordable element in, as I mentioned. So now I'll get to the update. That was basically what we've done previously. The Attorney General filed a complaint against the town of Milton back in February. One of the important points to realize on the Attorney General's case is they are seeking, if necessary, to be allowed to have a special master come in and draft zoning bylaws for communities that do not approve their own bylaws. In April of 2024, the Marshfield Special Town Meeting voted not to approve the first time we asked town meeting. The Supreme Court case for Milton opened on October 7th. The Attorney General has asked for a quick decision. However, the justices did not offer a timeline on their decision on October 7th. Generally, the court says it has about 130 days. If that's the case, we wouldn't know until mid-February what the Supreme Judicial Court thinks on that particular item. From July to September, staff worked on possible different locations for an MBTA district. We looked at one that was mainly because of concern about the Water Resource Protection District. We came up with one area that was basically east of the downtown from McDonald's Funeral Home to White Holland Drive. This area, because of it has other sensitive and other excluded areas in it, makes it, we would have to reduce the lot size from 30,000 to 10,000. We'd have to either add an additional floor or change the density from 16 to 19 in order to get that minimum number that the state wanted. And while this area is already developed as well, it has a lot smaller houses and a lot of single-family homes. So there's a higher chance that this area would be redeveloped than the area west of the high school that I showed you on the drone video. While this area is on the Gatcha route and it has municipal sewer, it also has floodplains, wetlands, and the other excluded lands mentioned by the state. Also, this section of 139 is only one lane in each direction, and it has no turning lanes and no traffic signals. So the planning staff decided that this was not a good alternative. A summary of the changes from our first bylaw that we brought to town meeting last April is we've added several locations, language to clarify this bylaw is exempt from the existing town site plan review, section 1202. That was, we got a review from the state attorney general on our draft after town meeting. And that was one of the things that they had mentioned that they felt we needed more clarification too. So we did that. We removed section 1607D, which covered the GATRA assistance, and rewrote it and put it into section 1608 under the general development section. We realized afterwards that I had it in both locations and we didn't need it in both locations. Based on the comments from April town meeting, we completely removed section 1609, fee in lieu of. This was an option that a developer would not have to put the affordable units on site. We have removed that, and the developer will have to place affordable units on their own sites. And then we added language requiring an administrative fee of $500 and a consultant fee of $1,000, because I realized we had not done that on the first draft, and we want to make sure that we are being able to process these and getting our professional consultant assistance. Now on to the ADUs. Sorry. State made some changes to the 40A as well recently, and they've changed the definition of accessory dwelling units, and they've added certain exemptions for the creation of accessory dwelling units by right in single-family residential districts. However, and this is an important however, subject to reasonable regulations, including but not limited to site plan review, setbacks, bulk, height, and subject to restrictions and prohibitions on short-term rental use. So the new section 13 says that we cannot have a zoning bylaw that prohibits, unreasonably restricts, or requires a special permit or other discretionary zoning approval for a single, an accessory unit in a single-family residential district. On that, currently, we allow accessory apartments by special permit in the town. And that's what they're basically saying we can't do anymore. The new law also says there is no requirement for owner occupation for either the accessory unit or the principal, the accessory dwelling unit or the principal unit. Personally, I think that's a mistake on the state side, but that's what they've done. They also said that you can only have one additional space, parking space, for the accessory dwelling unit, unless you're within a half mile of a commuter rail station, and then you don't need a parking space for the accessory unit. Under section 7, the new law removes the definition and replaces it with the new definition. And under that definition, it says that it's a self-contained housing unit of the same lot of the principal dwelling. You could have maintain a separate entrance, either directly inside or outside, always. Key point here is that it's not to be larger than half the gross floor area of the principal dwelling or 900 square feet, whichever is smaller. And then, as I mentioned before, the state in both sections of that they changed, then added the language subject to certain restrictions, side restrictions, etc. Setback, height, and the rental. What does the accessory dwelling unit allow for? It allows for the creation of accessory dwelling unit either in a single family house or an accessory building by right with site plan review. It sets up the planning board as the site plan review board. Complete applications are reviewed by the planning board as an agenda item in a regular meeting. It must meet its yard setbacks, maximum building coverage, minimum open space requirements. It requires a 10-foot setback from the principal building. It requires properties within the WRPD to have 10,000 square feet of land per bedroom unless connected to municipal sewer or a septic system with an enhanced nitrifying removal system that is approved by the Board of Health. It requires one additional parking space per accessory dwelling unit. It allows a maximum size, as the state had said, no more than 50% of the total floor area of the principal building or 900 square feet, whichever is less. And it does not allow for short-term rentals of the accessory unit. That's the link if you want additional details or copies of the bylaws. There's also copies of the bylaws available at the planning department here in Town Hall. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing. Did that work? Yep, we're back on the big screen, right?
Yeah, we are.
Yep.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Sorry, that did take a little longer than I thought it would.
So that ADU, that's straight from the state, that new language?
Yes,
Okay.
we have until February to pass that. In our case, we felt it's best to get this addressed now versus waiting until after February starts and the state just starts doing things. Better to have our language in place prior to the enactment date.
All right, so it's going to be 10 feet off the other structure. Katie, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think that sounds good because I know that I'd heard people to, in a different town, just talking about the state's decision for the accessory units. And they were like, oh yeah, there's no regulations on them anymore at all. And so I think it's good to get ahead of that. So people realize there are still, regulations. They've just been changed. And that's separate from MBTA communities, correct?
Yes, yes. In addition to
Yeah.
what the state is looking for us to do.
All right. I think, just for town meeting, I want people to know that those are two separate changes. Just stress that. But no, I think your presentation was very, thorough and explains all of the thought and effort that has gone into this. And I'm very impressed that the drone video worked, sharing over Zoom. So nice job.
Thank you to the police department for the drone video.
I was wondering where you got that. Oh. All right. Any other questions? Greg, what are you looking for us to do there with those?
On this one, I was going to have you guys continue it until November 18th, because on November 18th, we have to open the second public hearing for zoning changes because a couple of more things came up. We had a recent, what's the best way to describe this? We had always been interpreting something for site plan review and special permits, one-stop shopping, that if you needed a special permit from the planning board, instead of having to go to the ZBA for site plan review and the planning board for your special permit, the planning board would do the site plan review as part of the special permit. Recently, there had been a change that we were now going to be doing site plan review. Our bylaw had not been written for that. So we are making some adjustments to make it clear that it is only when you have to come in for a planning board WRPD or PMUD special permit that you would go to. Actually, I think it's the WRPD that we've written specifically because that's what it tripped it. So we're trying to address that one. And then there were a couple other little minor things that we'll have the public hearing. We may not know, but we hopefully will know what the Supreme Judicial Court thinks by the at the November 18th date. So I would recommend, why don't we continue this public hearing? We do need the board members to vote later in the agenda on sending the articles to the select board because the warrant has opened. So we do need to send those, but we will get to, finish this one and get to the other ones on November 18th, and then we'll be in good shape for the December 16th town meeting.
Yeah, just real quick on the special permits. So that's all special permits. If they're in the WRPD, we'll take them.
No. Well, if you need a WRPD special permit from the planning board, we would still do the site plan review.
Okay.
We were not looking to take on all site plan review for everything in that the ZBA usually handles.
Okay, that's
And
fine.
it was interpreted recently differently, which is kind of why we have Starbucks tonight.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to make a motion that we continue the MBTA communities and accessory dwelling unit zoning changes until November 18th, 2024. Is there a second? At 7 o'clock.
Katie O'Donnell, aye.
Thank you, Nick.
Nick Papastratus, aye.
And Mike Viviano, aye. All right, Greg, moving on. We're back to what, Beaver Crossing?
Yes, and just a reminder, because there's somebody else who had come on, if you're here for the John Sherman Estates continued public hearing, that has been continued to November 18th. On Beaver Crossing, so
Greg, I think it's Starbucks that have been on, if we want to jump to that.
Oh, if they're here, sure, we can do that.
Okay.
All right, so I'll make a motion that we open up the site plan approval for Starbucks and waive the reading. Is there a notice for that?
no,
Okay, so is there a second?
Second, Katie O'Donnell, aye.
For Nick
Nick Papastratus, aye.
and Mike Viviano, aye. Okay, Starbucks.
so on the Starbucks, can you see the screen?
Not yet.
No.
How about now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So as I mentioned before, this is from that drone video. You can see the cars coming in at an angle through the parking lot and stuff. Give me a second. And let me pull up the site plan. Oh, wrong one, sorry. So the revised site plan, this is where the cars were coming in. Can you see the hand?
We can.
The cars come in at an angle through here, which blocks these parking areas and these parking people from backing up and stuff. The plan is to basically route the people with this island. So they're going to tear up the asphalt and put in an island and direct cars through here around to the new signboard and then go through the drive-through.
It's a good idea.
There's a better drawing showing you still have these parking spaces. You have the other parking spaces, but they've shifted the cars waiting in line to order away from the building and not blocking any cars backing up. And the signboards and stuff are over in here. That's the relocation. They used to be over in this side, which gives more stacking for getting the orders ready. So on our side, we think that this is a definite improvement to the site, and the staff recommends that the waiver requested. So under site plan review with the Board of Appeals, you can request a waiver to waive the site plan. And basically that's what we're doing because it's of that recent interpretation difference that sent this to us. They had gone to the ZBA, and that's when a determination had been made that, oh, no, you're in the wrong place. You need to go to the planning board.
That's too bad.
Karen, did I explain that properly?
Yeah, I think that we felt that it
Warrant,
doesn't have any significant impact to the WRPD, and this project predated the WRPD, which is why there isn't a special permit already. It looked like it was back in like 1980 when Dunkin' Donuts was there, was when they first went to the ZBA. But we felt it was just an improvement with no real impervious changes.
Yeah, I agree. It's a huge improvement. It's very minor. So, anything from the board? Anything from
No.
the public? Okay, Greg, so what's the actual motion? We're granting them a waiver?
yes.
Or waiving the site plan approval requirement. Is that, what section was that? 12?
1202.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we waive the site plan approval requirement for Starbucks in this project. Is there a second?
Second, Katie O'Donnell, aye.
Nick,
Nick Papastratus, aye.
is this 4 votes, Greg, or is it 3?
It's 3.
Okay.
Simple majority.
Okay, Mike Viviano, aye. Okay, that passes 3-0.
Thank you all. Have a great evening.
Thank you. All right, back to Beaver Crossing.
So Beaver Crossing is subdivision, I think it's called Elmwood Court now, off of Union Street. It's all done. Pat has double checked it. We are holding $8,640. So we recommend the staff recommends that the board can release the remaining $8,640, and we have finished that subdivision.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Anything from the members? All right, seeing none, I'll make a motion, we release $8,640. Is there a second?
Second, Katie O'Donnell, aye.
Nick
Nick Papastratus, aye.
and Mike Viviano, aye. Thank you. Greg, Progress Way, reduction in surety.
Mike Faraki has gotten back to us. Pat has double checked. It is okay to release $157,530. And that would leave $23,784 for the remaining work to be done. So again, the recommended it is okay to release $157,530.
Okay, anything from the board? All right, seeing none, I'll make a motion, we release $157,530. Is there a second?
Second, Katie O'Donnell, aye.
Nick
Nick Papastratus, aye.
and Mike Viviano, aye. All right, let's see, 937 Webster Street, minor modification.
So Webster Street has come in. It has been sold to a new person, and
Where is this, Greg?
this is the farmers market
Haymarket.
Oh, okay, sure, yeah.
building that we had approved 2 residential units above, and with 2 small offices that had already been there. They would like to change the entire second floor to a beauty salon. And that's their minor modification request. They are keeping the outside work doing that had been proposed, and they're doing pretty much everything that we wanted in the site plan, but they're relocating a couple of things. So staff is okay with the minor modification requested. If the board,
Greg, why does it even need a modification if it's already prohibited? I mean, if it's already allowed.
it was special permitted as 2 residential units above.
And then it had the third in the house. And so they're still keeping that as mixed use. So there's one apartment over there with, one business over there?
Yes.
Because the whole property is the Haymarket building and the
And
house.
single family white house out on Webster Street. So while they had been permitted originally for offices upstairs, they hadn't had any uses upstairs for years. So they came in and went for the special permit for the residential units. Now they're asking, do we have to put in the apartments, or can we put in the beauty salon? Which is why we're saying we recommend, yes, let's let them have it as a minor modification.
Okay. Anything from the board? All right, seeing none, I'll make a motion that we grant the minor modification going from 2 residential units to some type of beauty salon at 937 Webster Street. Is there a second?
Second, Katie O'Donnell. Katie O'Donnell, aye.
Nick
Nick Papastratus, aye.
and Mike Viviano, aye. Okay,
Right,
we
does
already
that
did-
mean, Scott? For the 4th? Where'd he go?
I just got someone at the door, it looks like.
Well, Scott, why don't you vote anyway?
Scott DeCastro, aye.
All right, I like it when we get Scott in there. Thank you, Scott. So I'll say that's 4-0.
Are we on the zoning articles for town meeting?
Let's see, we are, yep.
Okay, so the zoning changes that we were going to submit is to, once again, as we mentioned before, the MBTA Communities Overlay District, to amend the zoning map for the MBTA Community District, to amend the zoning bylaw to remove the current residential accessory apartment section and replace it with residential accessory dwelling units. To amend Article 2 definitions to replace the residential accessory apartments with a new residential accessory dwelling unit definition. To amend the table of use to remove the current accessory apartments use category and replace it with an accessory dwelling unit category. And then the other zoning changes that I mentioned previously quickly was to replace the existing 1303 scope of authority with revised language, to amend Article 2 definitions, to add a new definition for battery energy storage systems, or BESS, BESS. We saw a site plan that somebody wanted to put in a large battery energy storage system next to the Martinson Elementary School, cutting down the remaining trees between the school and Forest Street. We have some concerns about such a use being located in the Water Resource Protection District and so close to a school. So we have decided to get an article in to see if we can address that. We also would like to amend the table of use to add in a new use 23 category for battery energy storage systems. So we can say where we think they should be. And that would be in the wholesale transportation and industrial section of that table of use. And we would also amend at the same time the large scale ground mounted solar panels on the ground to be more in line with the Dover amendment, because apparently we can't ban them throughout the town. We have to allow them in most districts. So those are the additional changes that we will be covering in that November 18th public hearing. But those are the ones that we felt that we, as staff, that we should ask you guys to submit to the select board, which we will do tomorrow morning, if you so choose.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Greg, I had meant to ask about this before. I'm interested in hearing more about the Dover amendment, with like the ground mounted solar. I know we've got that hearing coming up, because that's definitely, I hate seeing ground mounted solar in areas that could have been open space or, dual use. And it sounds like our hands are kind of tied by the state, but I'd like to know more about it.
Yeah, so currently we have it prohibited in multiple districts. I was still going to put it as you can't have it in a WRPD. You can't have it because we've had, remember DPW a few town meetings ago, got up and said that we needed to preserve our drinking water and that we should not have solar farms or whatever, solar panel farms in the WRPD. So I didn't want to get into it. Another discussion with them, if we get in trouble with the Dover amendment, that would be the DPW's place to protect that particular one. But I did allow it in the R1 in the R2. I did not allow it in the R3 or the RB because those are much smaller lots with much smaller housing. It is all very well developed right now. And I don't think those areas have room to help buffer between one of those projects or a BESS, a battery energy storage system, being put in next door. The battery energy system that we saw a plan was, they were these big battery things behind a fence, open to the elements. And there have been some, Karen had looked it up, there had been some concerns with fires, the batteries catching on fire, and leakage from these batteries if you have some kind of thing go wrong with these, which is why we were like, yeah, we don't want this in our WRPD. So that's kind of what we're working on the changes. I'm sorry, I don't have the draft right in front of me. So
No, and I didn't expect it, but just if you could send anything along.
I will send stuff to the board.
Yeah.
Very kind of interesting on the ADU units. I was down in Plymouth for a soccer game, and right by the state forest, there's a big sign that says Plymouth's first ADU, and they're welcoming people to go see it, I think.
Oh,
yeah.
I know we do have somebody very interested in containers. Like they would take containers and make ADUs out of them.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, they still need to meet building code.
yes,
So.
But it will be interesting to see how this plays out.
Yeah. Okay, so you're looking for a vote to move those
Those articles to submit them to the select board for the town special town meeting in December.
Anything else from the board? No? Okay, I'll make a motion that we have Greg submit the zoning articles that were just discussed for the special town meeting in December. Is there a second?
Second, Katie O'Donnell, aye.
Nick
Papastratis, aye.
Mike Viviano, aye. Okay, going down to the minutes, I'll make a motion. Anyone have any issues with any of the minutes? Okay, seeing none, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of 8/19/24, 9/16/24, and 10/7/24. Is there a second?
Second, Katie O'Donnell, aye.
Nick
Papastratis, aye.
and Mike Viviano, aye. Okay, any more board report there?
One other thing that happened today was we had a phone call from Greg Gibbs and the person who has bought in with him for Adelaide. And they have asked us some questions that I'm going to run through town council, and then I'll get back to the board about. Right now, we're holding lots 1 and 5 because of nitrogen loading concerns. They haven't had the monitoring wells, were never installed. They haven't given us the tests. We're trying to see if using the newer technology on the wastewater systems that has been proposed for the 40B off of Ferry Street, what, if anything, that could do to help see if we can move that problem with the last 2 lots being developed and the nitrogen concerns. So once I have a chance to talk to Bob and stuff, I will be getting back to the board because they basically wanted to know, could the board release lot 5 and give them time to seek purchasing some open space from other properties within that same zone too. And if they can't find anybody, they would then sign over lot 1. I want to make sure we're protected properly before we go down that path.
Okay.
So you'll hear more. I just wanted to give you a heads up that did come up today.
All right, sounds good. Anything else from board or staff? All right, seeing none, thank you for the meeting. Thanks, Greg. Thank you, Karen. I will make a motion that we adjourn tonight's meeting. Is there a second?
Second, Katie O'Donnell, aye.
Thank you, Nick.
Papastratis, aye.
Thanks, Nick, and Mike Viviano, aye. All right, good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Scott.
Good night.
Yeah.